So since FGO is being pretty slow right now, but we do have this Grail front coming out in just a couple of days, and we're all thinking that Koyanskaya is definitely going to be getting a raid up. I mean, that seems really obvious with her and especially Taigong over here. Ooh, whoops, that's the wrong one. Her and Taigong over here are going to be the event servants, right? Or the main, like, 5-star event servants, right? Like, I don't doubt that maybe Yugioh could get a buff. Maybe they buff, a Huang Fei Hu over here or something to make people actually want to use him, right? Because I still remember when he came out, people were like, I have no idea who this dude is. I don't care, right? But I think the most likely thing that they might do is they might go ahead and give Koyanskaya Dark over someone like, say, Taigong above. I mean, I would like them both to get one, but here's the problem. If you were to have asked me, last year before Kukulcan came out, you'd be like, do you think she needs a buff? I'd be like, no, I think Koyan Dark is fine. She's definitely like a really solid, like, A+ servant, bordering on being like S tier. Like, she's definitely pretty strong. Like, I like her a lot. But then Kukulcan came out, and I mean, I know if you look at the damage chart, it's like, oh, well, she's way higher than Kukulcan. Look, Kukulcan is all the way down here, but look, the way this chart is set up is super disingenuous, right? They try to make it look like Kukulcan doesn't do any damage because you need 20 stars to get these two buffs, but there's this little buster support unit called Koyanskaya Light, who on her second skill drops 20 stars, right? That might have been intentionally designed, so off rip, your Kukulcan is actually right here, which is kind of blowing Koyan Dark out of the water. Now, she could start to compete if she starts getting like the Earth attribute buff and everything, but even then for Kukulcan, she's got, Threat Against Humanity. She's also got Earth attribute, so you're probably just going to end up using her over Koyan Dark unless you just really, really like the Koyanskayas, right? So she kind of got blasted out of the water. It's one of those Summer Ibuki versus, say, Summer Kama type things, I think, in my opinion, where it's not that, like, you can't use Koyan Dark, at all or anything. It's just that, like, why would you use her over Kukulcan, right? It's like they're the same class. It's like Kukulcan just has the 50% battery over Koyan Dark's 30% battery over here. Although she does give it to the party, that's really nice and all. It's just, I don't know, unless you're using it with, say, like Merlin, who actually has like a really good NP that you want to be firing, or maybe you're using Castoria on the team. For the most part, helping your double Koyanskayas, if that's what you're bringing alongside Koyan Dark, get to their NP isn't really doing a lot for you. Like, sure, it can lower the enemy's NP gauge, and she can give you a little bit of extra NP back, but since Koyan Light is giving you 50% batteries, and she's also lowering your skill cooldown, it's not like you really need to get the Koyan Light's NP to like really win. So it's like you have the bigger battery, which opens you up for, better starting charge CEs. It opens you up for, 90 plus and 90 plus style content. It's just, you've also got the same survivability, but honestly better because they gave her an invincibility, which I like. So it's like if you want to use Koyan Dark, she does have survivability. It's really nice. But then Kukulcan, for whatever reason, not only does she just have an invincibility, but then she also gives herself the Solemn Defense. It's actually, no, my bad. This is the Pierce Invul one. I don't think she actually has survivability. That's what I'm getting to. Sorry, I misspoke a little bit. I saw the Pierce Invul thing and I kind of just tricked myself there. But you get what I'm saying, right? So it's not only that, like, Koyan Dark, doesn't really have survivability. They just also gave Kukulcan everything. Like, the fact is, giving her survivability where Koyan Dark doesn't is not like a thing you need to do, right? But then they were just like, what if she was the second servant to be able to give themselves Solemn Defense because of one of her passes, right? It's just ridiculous. So now, with this on the horizon, people are like, huh, do you think Koyan Dark should get a buff? I'm like, yes, please throw something her way. Make this a little bit more balanced because, again, you could try to point to the damage chart and be like, well, Koyan Dark is better base damage, but it's like, no. That's disingenuous, right? That is not accurate to how Kukulcan performs, right? Not only do you have just so many starting charge CEs that if for whatever reason you don't have Koyan Light and you have to do some weird like double Oberon waiver plug suit setup, something weird along those lines, you have Star Bomb CEs you can bring. But even then, you could just bring a friend Koyan Light. Like, you could still bring her to the stage and just activate her second skill and get the stars you would need, because then you get the buffs for the full battle. It's not like a one-time thing you got to keep reactivating. They're 3-turn buffs, right? There's also the fact, I mean, look at this. You also get a 30% NP damage buff, so if you're doing, like, double Koyanskaya plus Oberon, or God forbid, double Oberon plus Koyanskaya, the NP damage is going to be absolutely immaculate. So things that I was kind of thinking about for Koyan Dark. I mean, I know it's just kind of going over all the things that Kukulcan has over her. I don't want to see her get anything like survivability. I don't really think she needs that. If you just want to make her like a really good farming style servant, I think that's fine. Almost kind of think of bringing, say, someone like Space Ishtar or Summer Kama closer to, say, Summer Ibuki's level, or giving, like, say, Summer Masashi like a 30% battery or something, just to kind of bring her up to par. I think something like that is perfectly fine if that's what they want to do. Something I think that is really untapped though for Koyan Dark is we have this ability to pretty much apply every single debuff in the game, right? Like, not every single one literally, but all the damage over time ones, and we just don't really have a way to take advantage of it, right? Like, there's nothing really here that gives us like a power mod or just extra damage if an enemy is, you know, poison or anything. It's not on her NP at all. I mean, her NP is really good. I don't think this is what needs to be buffed. I think this is already really good as is, because if they are going to buff it, they're probably just going to increase the damage scaling. But we have this really cool ability where we're able to just smack people with every single debuff, and we don't have a way to take advantage of it, right? Like, I think of people like Jacques. If you're an NA player, we just got her, and it's kind of a similar situation where Jacques in the reverse wants to attack people with the curse power mod that she has, but until she gets her third skill buff, you're really reliant on, say, like command codes to really land that before you do damage, right? And so I think almost in the reverse, if they wanted to do something on like the third skill to really take advantage of all of these debuffs that we're applying, I think that'd be really cool, because otherwise it's just kind of a lot of fluff, right? Because realistically, if you don't have a way to take advantage of all of this, it's like it might win you a fight. I mean, I'll still reference like me bringing Morgan to beat Kiara, right, that I did like last week or something. Won that fight because of Morgan's curse that she gives on the NP, but that doesn't happen all that often, right? It's nice when it does, but it's not like you're always consistently winning fights because of those, unless you're like a very specific servant that is like going really far in on damage over time. Think of someone like, I don't know, like Summer Jalter, right? Like, she might be kind of a decent example where she just applies a lot of burn, that you do actually start to see a little bit of that taking into effect, because otherwise this is just kind of fluff, right? And realistically, it's just, oh, here's Pierce Invul and 50% crit damage, which is still good. I don't want to take that away from her. This is still, like, even if this is all this is, it's still good. That's not bad, but I just wish we could kind of do something to turn this from just being fluff to being a part of the actual kit, right? Because everything else over here, I don't really want to see these get like buffed over here, because these are like really, really nice. Like, being able to give yourself the overcharge, I think, is really nice. You could just pop this on like wave 3 if you're doing farming, for instance, and just nuke somebody with anti-earth power mods, right? I think that is really neat, and you can kind of save it for that. If you're using her in more difficult content, it allows you to just have a perfect like influx of stars. I think is really nice, because you've got the double buster cards, and between her giving herself stars on her buster cards and Koyan Light giving her NP on her buster cards, I really like the synergy between these two, right? And then obviously I don't want to do any like story spoilers for why she doesn't like all the these guys servants, right? Like all these people, but you know, I think it's a neat little like lore thing that they went ahead and give her that, you know, she herself can actually use, right? And it's pretty nice, right? The attack and the defense is really cool. Although I guess this does maybe conflict with the farming thing. They're like, well, maybe you do want to use this initially so you get like the attack and defense buff, but I don't know if you really need to, say, loop it back or something. With like Koyanskaya farming, I'm pretty sure you can do that, because you get like the double debuff. Well, then again, I'm thinking of using like the Atlas code with the maximum broken K scope, which then I think you could loop the skill back on skill 1 and or wave 1 and wave 3. But if you're not doing that, then I don't know if you can do it. But you know, semantics. I'm getting into like semantic things. I think this is fine, right? I think it's built just fine, right? And then this I do like as well. I mean, just giving herself like a solid enough buster buff is going to be good. Like, asking for more than 30% for 3 turns is starting to get a little bit selfish. I mean, I know that like I talked about Mordred a couple of days ago, and she gets like 50% for 3 attacks, and that's really strong. But you know, I think wanting them to like buff this up to like 50% for 3 turns might be getting a little selfish, right? It might be asking for a little bit much. And if we do get another buster support type unit, because Lord knows they just do not want to give Quick anything. They just don't want to give them anything at all. If they give us another one, kind of like, say, I don't want to say like an updated Merlin, but if it's kind of like a merge between a Merlin and like a Koyanskaya type thing, where they're really good for farming, but they also have like a really good like CQ style NP, then this gets a lot better. But even then, if you want to bring her with the Koyanskayas, because they synergize pretty well, I mean, it's also fine. Like, as I brought up earlier, it's not the craziest thing to get Koyanskaya's NP, but it does provide some neat things, right? Like removing the drain can or removing her draining the enemy's NP by 1 tick, my bad. Her doing that can come in clutch sometimes. It's helped me out a little bit. And then sometimes getting that extra 20% NP to the entire party that Koyan Light gives to everybody when she fires her NP, that could be kind of nice, right? But really, aside from like all of that other stuff, I mean, I think everything else is fine. It's just the only thing that I really want to see what they could do is this part right here, because this is really the only thing on her kit that when she initially came out, I thought it was very cool. It's just they don't really do anything with it. Like, I know when her initial details came out, you know, I kind of just read things in order, and so like, you know, I went from like her hits and everything. I'm like, okay, this looks fine. And I mean, obviously they're not gonna buff her hits or anything. If they could do that, I mean, they would have done that with like Ushi and a bunch of the other year 1 servants, right? Like, think of all your guys that have like 1-hit arts cards or like 1-hit quick cards, stuff like that. Definitely could go back and buff those dudes up, but you know, I go through and I like was looking at her details, and I'm like, everything here is really nice. And again, I especially really like this just for the kind of like lore aspect that both the Koyanskayas play really well together. That they kind of do work pretty well together. I think I really do like how they kind of just click together like 2 puzzle pieces. I think they really do have that synergy going. But then I got to this and I was expecting the NP to have something, and it was like, well, Earth Attribute Power Mod makes sense. Again, don't want to spoil Tugunska Sanctuary or anything, but yeah, it makes sense that she would have power mod against like a lot of these different peoples, right? Especially because you know, these dingleberries are in the event as well, so it's like it makes sense, right? And I think it's a really cool like balance between like, oh, it's like a lore accurate thing, and Earth power mod is also really good just for in-game farming, because not only do you hit a lot of servants, but you got all these really common enemies and a whole bunch of them as well. But I don't know. Either A, I think they just go the safe route, which is, you know, buff the NP so it gets higher damage scaling. So her base damage over here would jump. Not you, Kukulcan. We already talked about you. Where'd she go? There she is. Her base damage would go up a little bit, which I do think would bring her a little more in line with Kukulcan. Although, if it's just the damage scaling, she's not going to jump from 24 to like 35 over here. Like, it's not going to be that insane. It's not going to be that big of a jump. But if they did want to like really have her compete with Kukulcan, which I don't think is necessary, I do think, as much as I was kind of saying that like, oh, you would just use Kukulcan over Koyan Dark, right? Every, you know, in like most situations, right? I still think that she has some things that are like kind of neat over Kukulcan if you want to like maybe argue, like nitpick little things here and there, like especially, you know, just neat little things in her like passives over here that are kind of just nice. But if they wanted to like maybe make it a little bit more crazy, they could slap on like the buff scaling, and then I don't know, like maybe she could build up like 10% NP damage, you know, per wave, or 20% NP damage per wave if they really want to be crazy. I think that's what Space Ishtar has. I know Muramasa is really good, but his is a split buff. It's like 10% arts and 10% NP damage. That could also be kind of interesting if they wanted to give her like 10% buster, 10% NP damage, so she plays a little bit better with Oberon, and then also kind of technically gets like a mana burst by the 2nd NP and then exceeds a mana burst by the 3rd NP. I think that could be kind of interesting, but I think the interesting thing is to turn this into an actual real part of her kit. Like, I want to see them actually do something with this, because it's so cool that she could apply all the different debuffs on people. I think that's really neat. It's just we don't do anything with it. And I think we need to kind of go through and give it a purpose, right? Because otherwise, I mean, functionally, what you could probably just take this off of her and it doesn't really make a difference, right? Like, it doesn't really do anything to anybody. Like, it's not like she can really benefit by giving all these buffs to people, right? Or these debuffs, I suppose. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Give me your ideas for what you would like to see for Koyan Dark, because again, I do think, like, if you're gonna ask me, I do think Kukulcan is a lot better than Koyan Dark. But then again, you know, I use Kukulcan a lot more, so maybe I'm a little bit more biased. Maybe the Koyan Dank people, the supporters, could come out in the comments and be like, "You big dummy, she's got all this stuff. You're wrong." You know, fraud TL. You could drop that in the comments or something. You could drop that down there. But yeah, I do have a little bit of a bias for Kukulcan. I do really like her. I think she's like one of those servants that I saw kind of like when Melusine came out. Like, what was it, like 2.5 years ago now? It's like one of those servants that as soon as they're released, it's like, oh, this servant's going to be broken on release, and I have not been disappointed with Kukulcan. So let me know in the comments down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. And hopefully in the next couple of days, we get that live stream, and I don't know, maybe we get some nice little reveals, although it could just be we don't get any buff at all, and they're like, oh, we're just going to give her one of the other Koyanskaya outfits, right? Because, you know, she has all these different neat outfits and everything. Like, maybe we're gonna let her dress up in this outfit over here, because, well, no, that is this one. Never mind, that is the same one, so we don't have to give her one of those. But I don't know, they could give her like the The Lost Belt 3 one? I don't think she has the Lost Belt 3 outfit. Or the Lost Belt 4 one, so we could tack that on to one of the Koyanskayas? I don't know. Anyway, I'm rambling at this point. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.